This is the College Football Countdown to Kickoff Show, powered by Calvi Electric on 97.3 ESPN, with your host, Nick Kosko. We're taking you up to the kickoff of Rutgers Football. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Nick Kosko.
College Football Countdown to Kickoff Show, powered by Calvi Electric. I'm Nick Kosko, bringing you to Rutgers Football. They take on Indiana at noon today. Got to talk a lot of Big Ten football today, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Michigan Northwestern will follow Rutgers, Indiana. And then, of course, the big one tonight. I want to say granddaddy of them all. Could be a Rose Bowl preview for all we know. Back in the day, Ohio State, Penn State. Big-time football game tonight. That'll be at Penn State. Whiteout tonight. Number 4, Ohio State. Number 9, Penn State. We're going to get into it quickly here. James Kratch of NJ Advanced Media is going to join me in a little bit to preview some Rutgers football and also go around the horn with the Big Ten as well. I got to start with Rutgers. They're a joke. I hate to say it, but they really are. When you look at what they had to do the last 2 weeks, all you had to do is win. All you had to do was win a football game, and you lose to Kansas and Buffalo. Last week was embarrassing. I figured they would at least bounce back a little bit, but I didn't give them too much credit last week. I should have put more money on Buffalo for all we know. Not that I bet the game. I should have given more emphasis to Buffalo and their scoring potential with the guys they have on their roster. Anthony Johnson's a beast at wide receiver. How about Tyree Jackson too, quarterback? My goodness. But Rutgers is going to stick with their true freshman starting quarterback, Artur Sitkowski. There's no Gio Rashino this week. And ultimately, I think that's the right move. You know, if you're going to talk Rutgers at all you have to say is, you know, they need something different at quarterback. But you have to stick with Sitkowski. Rutgers had aspirations of making a bowl game this season, and it's not happening. On paper, the team looked better. On paper, the schedule looked winnable in these first 7 weeks. The only real challenge you had was Ohio State. And then you had Northwestern in Piscataway on your homecoming game. But now, you'd be lucky to win another football game. You'd be really lucky to win another football game. I don't think they're going to win today. Spoiler alert for my picks later. I'll also give you a pick of Ohio State and Penn State as well. But they're not winning today. You can get all the fans in early if you want with the RU Brewfest. Bribe them to come into the stadium a little bit earlier. Indiana, while not as good as their record might indicate, it's not looking good for the Scarlet Knights. When you can't move the ball on offense with a freshman quarterback, a smaller offensive line, a rotation of backs, and receivers who cannot get open, it's a recipe for disaster. Not only that, the defense has given up, seems like 50 points a game at this point. For a defense that actually has veterans on it, you've had the same defensive coordinator, Jay Neiman, for 3 years, under a defensive head coach in Chris Ash. Unlike the offense where you have a rotating cast of characters, that offensive coordinator, this defense should be getting better. It's not. The tackling is bad. The big plays are a mess. And you put that all together, that's why they're 1-3 and their only wins over Texas State. Another bad FBS program. Because of their losses to Kansas and Buffalo, you could probably put Rutgers as the worst Power 5 team in the country. Used to belong to Kansas, but after Kansas blew them out, Rutgers now in that unfortunate spot. So I don't want to harp on them too much right now, but some news and notes for the South Jersey guys that are playing for the Scarlet Knights, Isaiah Pacheco and Bo Melton. And I'm only talking about them is that they're actually key cogs of this team right now, not just because they're South Jersey, not just because they're South Jersey guys. Bo Melton needs to break out someday. I don't know when he is going to, but I was prematurely on him last year, thinking that he would make an impact last year as a true freshman. Did not happen. This year, made some strides in the offseason. Number 1 wide receiver. The kid's suited for the slot, man. He's not that big 6'3" wide receiver who's 220 pounds up above a defender and make a catch. It's not happening. You need to put him in the slot. You need to do something with him because nobody's getting open for Rutgers. Nobody. The only guy who's getting open is Jerome Washington, who's an NFL caliber tight end, and they can't even get him the ball. What does that say? Bo Mellon has to step it up somehow. They need to find ways to get him in space and get him the ball. He does have the speed. You get him in open space, the kid's gone. But they can't get him the ball. Nobody can catch. Nobody can get open. Again, recipe for disaster. As far as Pacheco, I know he's a converted quarterback. Now he's at running back. He's put on a lot of muscle. The guy was a running back in high school until he needed to play quarterback. So he has some skill. He has some skill at that position. But he got 6 carries in garbage time last week. I don't get it. I get you played Texas State week 1. And he looked good, but it was Texas State. Give him the ball. The kid's got potential. He's a true freshman. If you're gonna embrace this youth movement, do it in full. That's why I was against starting Gio Rashino at quarterback. You're not making a bowl game. You better prepare for 2019 and say, hey, if you're young, you're going to play here immediately. We could build something and maybe make a bowl game next year or 2020. You have to embrace the youth movement with the recruiting. You have to do it now to show these recruits that you're serious about playing them early and giving them an opportunity. Maybe you can convince a couple more 4-star guys to come in for 2019 and 2020. That's what you need. You up the recruiting game by pushing this youth movement. You have to believe in the program progress. That's the only way you're going to get this done. Otherwise, you're going to have more results like you did the last 2 weeks against Kansas and Buffalo. Forget about Ohio State. That happens every year right now. That's going to continue. But teams like Kansas and Buffalo, they play UMass next year, I believe, Rutgers. They lose to UMass next year. Please, by all means, put Rutgers in the FCS. Send them back to the American Athletic Conference, Big East, whatever you want to do with them. It's bad. Not that I would say get rid of the Big Ten for Rutgers, but something has to happen. All right, enough of them. Ohio State, Penn State. 2 top 10 teams in the country. That game is tonight. Catch it right here on 97.3 ESPN as well. The story of this game is it's Dwayne Haskins at quarterback for the Buckeyes and Trace McSorley for Penn State. It's the battle of these two guys. These two guys are going to make or break the game tonight. Now, I know it's at Penn State. They have the advantage, but I do like Ohio State in this game. I think they do have an advantage because I think they're a better overall team. The only thing that's hurting them right now is on defense without Nick Bosa, who's probably going to be the number 1 overall pick next year. The kid's that good. Could be better than his brother Joey. That's a scary thought. Some stats for you. Dwayne Haskins, almost 1,200 yards, 16 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's impressive. That guy is a Heisman candidate this year. Haskins is that good at quarterback right now. McSorley, pretty good as well. 763 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 picks, but he runs pretty well. 236 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. By the way, he's only the second quarterback ever in Penn State history to rush for 1,000 career yards. Dual threat quarterback at home. You have a nice running back replacing Saquon Barkley, if you can believe that. Miles Sanders hit over 200 yards last week. He's going to be a threat to Ohio State's defense today. And without Nick Bosa, they're going to have to do a good job with their backups and their other guys to contain Miles Sanders and McSorley. Otherwise, they're going to run up and down the field all night. All night. I expect this to be a high-scoring affair because you look at what they've been able to do. I know Ohio State has not played the caliber of teams as Penn State, but it's still early in the season for both teams. Ohio State and Penn State are averaging 54.5 and 55.5 points a game. That is absurd. The average will go down. I get it. We're only 4 games into the year. But I wouldn't be surprised if we have a 35-32 game tonight, 35-31. You have maybe both teams in the 40s, 45-38. I mean, this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think both defenses can come on strong tonight, but this is the story of the quarterbacks and the run game. Mike Weber back for Ohio State, by the way, at running back. Huge addition after he got hurt against Tulane. You have Weber and Dobbins in the same backfield for Ohio State, plus with Haskins slinging the football. That's a dangerous offense. McSorley and Miles Sanders. Boys, this is going to be a fun game to watch tonight. I'll tell you what. Again, the only thing I'm worried about Ohio State is the outside contain because you have a guy in Nick Bosa who's not going to be on defense. He's out for a while. I don't know when he's coming back. Forget about Joey Bosa in the NFL. He's out till November. Nick Bosa might be out the same amount of time, which is pretty weird, isn't that? I think one had core muscle surgery. The other one had an ankle surgery or a knee surgery. I mean, it's a shame to see both those guys hurt. I was telling my producer, Josh Hennig, the other day, can you imagine both guys are on the same NFL team one day? Woo! My goodness. If only they played together in college. Oh, massacres for other offenses. All right, we're going to step aside, take a quick break. We'll have James Kratch of NJ.com On the other side, we'll talk about Rutgers, talk about Big Ten, and we'll go around the horn with NCAA football. Keep it locked. College football countdown to kickoff, powered by Calvi Electric, right here on 97.3 ESPN.
This is the College Football Countdown to Kickoff Show, powered by Calvi Electric on 97.3 ESPN.
Back here on the College Football Countdown to Kickoff Show, powered by Calvi Electric, 97.3 ESPN. Pleased to be joined now by NJ.com's own James Kratch, covering Rutgers football. Rutgers taking on Indiana at noon. James, what's going on?
Not much, Nick. Just out here and about. I was surprised. Pretty good crowd from what I've seen in the parking lot so far at the game. I didn't really expect a big crowd, and I don't know if we'll get one, but at least the tailgating's looking good.
Well, I got to say, tailgating is important. I would imagine that's due to the RU Brewfest, no?
I would think so, yeah. I heard they sold over 800 tickets, so that's on the other side of the stadium from where I am right now. But it seems like there's a lot of excitement there. But I think the big issue with the Scarlet Knights is how many of these people who are in the parking lot are going to get into the stadium.
Yeah, to say the least, you would think the Brewfest would help out attendance today. So just on this game as a whole, I know regardless of what you think of the Rutgers football program at this point, considering they have been thoroughly embarrassed the past couple of weeks. It might not get any easier today considering the spread on this game with Indiana. Indiana, I know they haven't played too many great teams, but they are a winning football program at the moment. Rutgers decided to stick with Artur Sitkowski. I said that was the right move to go to. I thought that's what would happen. Are you surprised at all that Rutgers is going to stick with their 18-year-old freshman quarterback?
I was a little bit surprised, just in the sense that it felt like earlier in the week they were kind of hemming and hawing on the decision. But you're right, it is the right decision. I think that, look, you're building for the future at this point. You're 1-3. You're not going to a bowl game. And all due respect to Gio Ricchino, but he's not a magic bullet that's going to find this team 5 wins over its final 8 games. And at some point, you gotta look forward to 2019. I know some fans don't want to hear that, but Art Skowski is the future of the program. They believe that he's the quarterback of the future. So he's the quarterback of the present too. I think they believe he's the most talented passer on the roster right now. So I think at this point, you just got to play the kid, go through the growing pains, and realize that there hopefully can be better days ahead.
Now, you and I were both at the presser on Monday. We heard what Ash and the coordinators had to say. Was there anything different at practice this week in regards to the quarterbacks? Did we see Jonathan Lewis get a couple more reps, even though they really didn't hint towards that? What was really the feel around the team coming into this week? Because they're back at home again, and now they are into the crux of conference play now. Was there any different feeling around the team this week, or what are they trying to do to get over the past 2 weeks against Buffalo and Kansas?
I don't think it did much different. And in terms of the quarterbacks, no. I mean, I would not expect Jonathan Lewis to play today. Gio may have taken 1 or 2 extra first-team snaps earlier in the week, but for the most part, they just stuck with Art at quarterback. And actually, they didn't really change much. I mean, they focused on certain aspects of the game a little bit more in practice, but they didn't reinvent the wheel this week. I think they just kind of went business as usual. And look, I mean, it's more of a talent issue than anything for Rutgers at this point. They're not going to be able to change something or come up with some magic formula to be more successful. They just are going to have to stick with what they're doing.
Now, when I'm looking at your bold predictions, actually, for today's game, you can find that on NJ.com for those out there. James, when you look at what they have to do on offense, obviously there's pretty much no offense thus far this season until you go back to the week 1 against Texas State. But Bo Mellon's a guy that we know down here in South Jersey, but he has not been able to really reel in the ball a lot this season, whether he's not getting open, he's not getting the ball, or if he's dropping a couple passes. I mean, he's supposed to be this big play threat. It's fair to ask, when is his breakout game ever coming?
That's a great question. I mean, I predicted he'll score a touchdown today. We'll see if it happens. But I just think one of the issues Bo Melton's have is that he's just not getting open, and no one's getting open on the Rutgers offense. That kind of speaks to the fact that their offense has struggled so much. I think Bo's a guy they have a lot of hope for, that they feel he's got a lot of potential. But right now, we're almost halfway through his sophomore season. It just hasn't clicked yet. They got to hope it clicks soon, though.
One other South Jersey guy I wanted to focus on real quick, Isaiah Pacheco. I know he got a few carries basically in garbage time last week, but I got to think if they're going to establish any sort of ground game, I think they need to at least add a third running back to this rotation. I mean, Blackshear's good enough, but when you add in Hillman, who's not getting as many carries as I thought, You would think they would add in a guy like Pacheco, who has really flashed some pretty elite potential at running back.
Yeah, I get the feeling that maybe we're gonna finally see Pacheco be more of a fixture with the first team offense going forward. I think there's a lot of concerns about Pacheco. He's a converted quarterback. He's moved to running back from high school. His footwork's a little bit raw. Ball security might be a concern. But at this point, Rutgers desperately needs playmakers. He's one of the few guys they've got, at their disposal who could add that playmaking ability to the offense. So I think we're going to see more of him going forward.
Now, go around the Big Ten a little bit. Obviously, Rutgers is going to do what they can today. But in the other games, I know Michigan takes on Northwestern later today. It's one of the games we have down here on 97.3 ESPN. Michigan, we said it a couple weeks ago when we were talking that Harbaugh could, in fact, be on the hot seat, or his seat is at least a little warm because they need success over in that program. But, I mean, after that first loss to Notre Dame, they have crushed opponents. Do you expect the same today on the road against Northwestern?
I do. Look, I think Northwestern, they're hurting a little bit. They're coming off a bye week. They're going to be frisky at home. I think that they're going to hang around with the Wolverines for maybe a half, maybe three quarters. But I think Michigan's just got too much firepower. I think they're a 14-point favorite. I think they cover that spread. They pull away late.
As far as the big one today, it's Penn State and Ohio State. Rutgers obviously already saw Ohio State on the road. Penn State's coming to Piscataway a little later this season, but this is the big game of the night. I look at Dwayne Haskins for Ohio State, Trace McSorley you got for Penn State. You have two great quarterbacks, but at least in that department, I'm going to give the edge to Haskins. And overall, I know it's at Penn State. I know that environment's so tough to play in. These are two top 10 teams, but I just think Ohio State is maybe far and away the best team in the Big Ten. It seems like it's them at the top, and then you group in teams like Penn State and Michigan, and then it's everybody else.
I disagree with you completely. I think not only does Penn State cover this, I think Penn State wins this game outright. I just look at Ohio State, and I think that they're a very talented football team. Obviously, I saw them in Columbus. Who have they played, really? I mean, yes, they played TCU, kind of a neutral site, weird game, but Oregon State's not any good. Rutgers is not any good. Tulane's not that good, although they had a very impressive win last night against Memphis. I think that's a tough environment to play in. I think Penn State's talented. I think Trace McSorley is a guy who wins big games. I like Penn State to win this game.
That's very interesting. Now, I mean, if you think Penn State is going to win this game, do you think they have a nice chance? I mean, basically, to me, I think the winner of this game is likely to win the Big Ten title. Do you see Penn State as a potential playoff team later this year?
I think so. I mean, look, the thing they have going for them is they've got a lot of their big games this season at home. Helps them out a lot. I'm not saying Michigan. I mean, look, they could lose to Michigan. They could lose to Michigan State. They play Wisconsin later in the year. I think it's going to be one of those seasons where the East champ is going to have one loss at least. I agree with you. The team that wins this game is clearly the favorite to win the division. I would think they're the likely to win the division. I'm not ruling out Michigan or Michigan State at this point. But I think Penn State, it's a perfect setup for Penn State. They're having their white out. It just seems like it's a tough environment. Obviously, I just think that this is a matchup that's kind of tailor-made for the Nittany Lions.
What do you make of Penn State's whiteout environment? I know they're one of the few teams that can pull off something just like that. I know some teams have blackouts, stripeouts. Penn State does both of the whiteouts and the stripeouts, but that's a prime time recruiting time for Penn State, considering they want to make it. James Franklin said the most intimidating environment in college football. This is a big recruiting weekend for them. Do you think the whiteout and plus the fact they're playing Ohio State has a big impact on recruiting, not only just the Jersey kids, but basically the entire country at this point?
Oh, definitely. I mean, look, I think when I look at the national landscape right now, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, they're kind of in a pack unto their own in terms of recruiting program success. I think Penn State has the ability to break into that upper echelon the way they've been recruiting. Now they've got to translate it through success, get to the playoff, win the Big Ten. Obviously, they won the Big Ten a couple of years ago. I think this is a big game for them and a chance to make a statement.
Now, speaking of Clemson, it was interesting because now we have Trevor Lawrence as the starting quarterback. He's also a true freshman for the Clemson Tigers. But Kelly Bryant is going to transfer. Where do you think he goes? And do you think it was ultimately the right decision for Bryant to transfer, considering he only has a grad year left now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think he wants to play football, and he wants to be a starter. He wants one more season of college football. That's the right decision for him. I mean, I think any kid would make this decision. Where he goes, no clue. I think it depends on how things shake out, But he's going to be a free agent, and there's going to be a team out there that can potentially contend for a national title that feels they're a little weak at quarterback and go target him. So we'll have to see how that all shakes out.
It's interesting you say the term free agent because now it seems like we're talking about pro football here. This whole new redshirt rule is very interesting, and obviously I think it's the best thing that college football has done as of late in terms of redshirts where, a guy can play 4 games and still transfer and not lose eligibility. In the case of Kelly Bryant, he is arguably going to be one of the more sought-after quarterbacks, and of course, unless Jalen Hurts also transfers, then you could have 2 big guys on the market, but for Kelly Bryant, it seems like just because he is going to be a grad transfer, so to speak, he can go anywhere. How do you think the recruiting pitch is going to be for Kelly Bryant? And do you have a school I know you say you really have no idea, but do you have a school in mind as to where he could possibly go and that team could contend for a national title?
No, I mean, I don't really have a tremendous school in mind. I mean, I will point out, hey, Penn State, Trace McSorley obviously is going to move on after this season. I think he's going to want to go to a school where he's going to be the starter, and they're going to be able to contend for a conference and a national championship. I think it's simple as that. So, find a list of schools that have senior starters, I guess, or going to have juniors that might head to the NFL, maybe fit his style of play, and obviously eliminate the ones that aren't really going to contend for a national title next year. Go from there.
What do you think about this redshirt rule? I think it's, just going back to what I said before, I think it's one of the better things that college football has done as of late. Do you expect more changes to the redshirt rule where it gives players even more freedom, or you think the NCAA is going to kind of halt themselves at this point?
No, I think this is a good rule they've established, and I think this is probably as far as it goes.
In terms of the other big boys around college football, I know there's Alabama, of course. It just seems like they are unstoppable. In whatever aspect you've been able to watch Alabama this year, do you really foresee anybody in the country challenging Alabama at all for a national title?
I think Georgia and Clemson can challenge them, and that's about it. I think what's going to really come down to Alabama is how does the playoffs shake out? Do they have to play Clemson and Georgia, back-to-back to get to the national championship? I think that's where it's really going to come down to.
One more for you on the national landscape. Stanford, Notre Dame. Stanford's number 7, Notre Dame 8th in the country. They're both 4-0. Do you see this as a playoff elimination game?
Probably. I mean, I think the Pac-12 is going to have a hard time getting in. Notre Dame's weird. I mean, they can lose. I think an 11-1 Notre Dame team, depending on how everything shakes out nationally, they could probably still get in. I like Stanford to win this game. I just think that Stanford team, they got lucky at Oregon. Oregon kind of gifted them the game, but I haven't been terribly impressed by this Notre Dame team. Lots of close wins against so-so competition. I know they beat up Wake Forest last week. I think this is a matchup that Stanford's just the better team.
One last thing for you, James, and we'll circle back over to Rutgers as they do take on Indiana. A little Brewfest action this morning, so maybe some fans will pile in. In any chance that Rutgers wins today, does that do anything for the program moving forward this season? I know you really can't erase the stink or get rid of the stink of the losses to Kansas and Buffalo, but would a win today somehow, some way, change the perspective on the season even a little bit?
I think so. It would calm people down. It would show that maybe this team is not completely rock bottom. It would take a 1-11 off the table, which I think is a major concern for Rutgers fans. Look, I think at this point, you want to win games, you want to have success, and see where you are at the end of the year. You just have to be able to sell the idea that progress is still being made, and right now you can't do that.
All right, James Kratch of NJ Advanced Media. Follow him on Twitter at James Kratch. James, we appreciate your time as always. Looking forward to talking to you soon, and please don't drink any beers before the game today.
I will not. Can't do that. Thanks, Nick.
All right. That was James Kratch of NJ Advanced Media. Follow him on Twitter at James Kratch. Catch his work on NJ.com. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, picks for Rutgers, Indiana, and Ohio State and Penn State. Big game tonight. Keep it locked here to the College Football Countdown to Kickoff show powered by Calvi Electric on 97.3 ESPN.
This is the College Football Countdown to Kickoff show, powered by Calvi Electric on 97.3 ESPN.
Back here on the College Football Countdown to Kickoff show, powered by Calvi Electric. I'm your host, Nick Kosko. A couple more minutes to play with before we send it out to the Rutgers broadcast team. Rutgers, Indiana, kicking off at noon, followed up by Michigan Northwestern, and then Ohio State, Penn State to round out your college football triple header right here on 97.3 ESPN. So we'll get into what we're actually going to be doing now, and that's our picks. Our picks for college football. Rutgers, Indiana. We'll do them second. We'll do Ohio State, Penn State first. I know a lot of people like Penn State just because they're at home. They're a very good football program. They have McSorley. They have Miles Sanders at running back. Yada, 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 yada. Ohio State is the real deal. Forget Urban Meyer. You see how dominant they can be without Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer is just a figurehead at this point on that sideline. I know there's no Nick Bosa, but Dwayne Haskins is one of the better quarterbacks they've had in the last few years. He's better than J.T. Barrett. I'm telling you right now, he is better than J.T. Barrett for that program. The dude is a monster thrower, a absolute cannon, and he can make those tight window throws. And he's huge. Good luck bringing him down. I know he can't run like a J.T. Barrett, a Braxton Miller when he played, even a Cardale Jones. Haskins, to me, is a more polished version of Cardale Jones. Cardale Jones, when he stepped in, nobody knew about him. He blew the doors off of everybody. And then he eventually benched for J.T. Barrett the next year. Cardale Jones could run, too, a little bit better than Haskins can, but Haskins is a better thrower. He's the best thrower this program's had, as I mentioned, in the last few years. And you can't forget about Tate Martell. I love Tate Martell. And he's going to come in those sub packages. He's a runner. You know he's going to run, but the dude can throw it a little bit too. Tate Martell can throw. I'm excited to watch him. Back when I watched that QB1 series, that documentary that Peter Berg did online, with it was actually him and Jake Fromm were in the first season. Can you believe that? And Jake Fromm almost won a national championship last year. Tate Martell, man. I'm looking for him. That's going to be key. If Ohio State can balance the act between Haskins gunning it and if they can bring in Martell in the right spots, it's going to keep Penn State's defense honest. It's going to keep them on their heels, and they could silence 115,000 people or however many are at Penn State tonight. For Penn State, again, this game is going to be a shootout. It's going to be an offensive explosion. I'm going to give the edge to Ohio State. Penn State could easily run away with it because they're at home, because of McSorley. He has an outside shot at the Heisman. Decent. He's a better passer this season without the aid of Saquon Barkley, but he has Miles Sanders in at running back, who's pretty good himself. So McSorley has that dual threat aspect about him. They can really control the clock and keep the ball away from Ohio State. And again, Nick Bosa not being there. Good luck on the outside containment with McSorley and Sanders running the option to that side. I am going to go with Ohio State, though. I think they're a more complete team. The defense is real. Shout out to Greg Schiano, of course, a Jersey guy at heart, I know, from his Rutgers days. But the guy is a good defensive coordinator. You can't take that away from him. I know he's got all the talent with Ohio State, but the guy knows how to call a defense. He'll find ways to shut down McSorley and Sanders, or at least find ways to contain them. I will go Ohio State 35, Penn State 31. On the road, Ohio State maintains its top 4 status. They maintain their status as the best team in the Big Ten. And the way Michigan's playing, baby, I'll tell you what, it might come down to Ohio State and Michigan later this year. That's if Michigan can get by Penn State and Michigan State. They've been foils for Jim Harbaugh in the past. All right, Rutgers and Indiana. Again, the key is you have to keep the ball away from Indiana. Basically, the key for Rutgers in any game the rest of the way, you have to keep the ball away from the opposing offense because the defense just gets their doors blown off. The chunks are real. Stevie Scott is a big guy to look out for Indiana today. Has over 400 yards rushing this season, 3 touchdowns, but he's averaging about 5 yards a carry. And if you're Rutgers, if you're getting him 5 yards a carry, it's going to be bad all day because he could break one. Even Indiana's quarterback, Peyton Ramsey, he's not going to air it out downfield. He likes to spread around some of these short and medium gains, but against this Rutgers secondary without Bleswan Austin for the rest of the year and how it's been the last couple of weeks, it could turn ugly. Indiana might open up for the big plays early in offense just to get this game out of reach early. Artur Sikowski, if you're a Rutgers fan, just pray for him to have a good game. He didn't play awful last week, but he didn't do anything. He didn't turn the ball over. you have to pray for your 18-year-old quarterback to have at least one good game to give him some confidence going into conference play. They do play Illinois eventually, so maybe they'll beat Illinois. Who knows? Rutgers is going to lose today. Indiana's going to win 35-14. That'll do it for me. Stay tuned for Rutgers at noon. Michigan after that. Penn State, Ohio State after that. I'm Nick Kosko. College Football Countdown to Kickoff, 97.3 ESPN.